Hello and welcome to the Smart Building series. This is our brand new YouTube channel dedicated to all things relating to technology in the built environment. Today I had a really interesting conversation with a guy called Brian Shepherdson who works for Virgin Money in the UK, and he's really responsible for a lot of the facilities management work they do, especially related to some of the office space that they have in Newcastle. You work for Virgin Money. Be good just to hear a little bit more about specifically how you work within the organisation. What's your role?
Okay, so I work in our property function. So what our prime purpose is to provide great places to work for our people. So that entails both main office sites here in Newcastle upon Tyne, a place called Gosford, and at another series of main offices across the UK. We're UK based, so we're not overseas in any way, shape or form. And then we have a store network or a lounge network as well, which are predominantly retail banks on the high street in the UK. So the main thrust of our activity is very much here at the main site, where we have the large numbers of people in the vast majority of the facilities, and of course the greater scope to do things a little differently and trial new things and innovations as well.
And that's obviously how the conversation started between myself and you know, about talking about this kind of innovative stuff that you guys have been doing.
Yeah.
So it'd be good just to get a little flavour of that. What kind of trials and tests have you been doing? How did you start?
So I took on the technical responsibility for our technical services function, which is your classic facilities maintenance in scope of service, really. So hard services, predominantly maintenance, lots of HVAC and some critical systems, UPS, generators, chillers. And at the outset, I kind of had a hunch, and I was seeing in the industry press, there's got to be a smarter way to maintain. And I came from an aviation background previously, and I was well aware of the differences in maintenance regime that you apply in safety critical environments. You would want to replace things before they fail. So as a kind of another office campus in just in the northeast of England, I set about having a conversation with suppliers, and predominantly Honeywell at this stage. I said there must be a better way to maintain the infrastructure that we have here. We get the classic hot and cold complaints across the population. So how can I get at the front end of that activity and prevent those rather than reacting to them? So out of that came a proposition really at the time of outcome-based service, a project around that, which effectively was about predictive analysis of our HVAC infrastructure here. So we became a trial site for that very type of technology, which I think is being certainly promoted as a Honeywell product now, to say, look, can we get further insights into the status of fan coil units, chillers, and we're now embarking on our boiler plant to predict when it may fail or be notified when it goes out of parameters, the prime purpose being to prevent the occupant dissatisfaction that would transpire if you didn't do something about it and it just ran to its full conclusion. So that's sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's an interesting point about it not just being about, let's say, saving energy, which I'm sure is important to you guys, but also about ultimately also providing the right environment for your staff.
Indeed. So, I think property and facilities management is typically associated with people raise an issue or a complaint. So one of my central kind of focuses was how can we prevent those occurring? Therefore, how do we know what the plant's doing before it's humanly possible to kind of know when the complaints coming? So if you look at certain data coming off various pieces of plant and equipment, you can pretty much tell it's in a deteriorating state and it's starting to go towards being out of parameter, and ultimately will go out of parameters, thus causing a problem. So at that point, that's the point I wanted to prevent. And equally, the standard maintenance regime seemed to me to be a bit antiquated and dated. Why do we maintain everything at a set frequency regardless of its use and the demand placed upon it? So, not dissimilar to condition-based maintenance principles to say, let's maintain the most critical things the most and the least critical things the least, and make sure that the things that we really rely on never fail. And actually, we're not really that bothered if we have a problem with the non-critical stuff. So proportionally dealing with the estate rather than the one-size-fits-all approach. And the key common denominator to that was data. To obtain data, to analyse data, and to gain insights that wasn't humanly possible through that data so we can change the way we work. It's a transformational model as opposed to just tweaking the edges.
Yeah. So the data for you has been the key. I mean, but before this was put in place, you weren't really doing any analysis on data.
No.
Right.
Correct. So we were following a traditional planned preventative maintenance program, which said we shall change filters, we shall change pumps, we shall do a service at X, Y, Z and frequency. So that, to me, seemed to be a bit just dated. So there's a guy you're probably aware called SFG 20, which says, the industry standard for maintaining this piece of estate is that. And I was really just challenging the norms around that to say, well, can we not do it a bit smarter? Because I'm sure there's a way, and the evolution of technology should enable us to do that, given the experiences you see in other industry sectors more critical than perhaps just office real estate, such as shore, aviation, and other safety critical industries. So, they maintain, based on data, predictive analysis of, when things are going to go wrong and prevent it happening.
Great. So how have you seen this impact your business? Now that you've put in this, these systems, and you're now analysing the data.
So what we're now seeing is we can predict and therefore prevent faults before they impact the service that particular asset is delivering. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a classic heating and ventilation scenario, a bit like traditionally, somebody's hot or cold, we go along, pop our head into the ceiling and say, the fan coil unit's got a problem, we'll sort it out later on when you walk back home. What we can now do is see the parameters drifting, intervene before that. So think flow and return of chilled water has been a classic example. If that deviates outside of parameters, we know that the environment that it's serving is going to be impacted. So we can therefore look at the root cause of that variation before the occupant becomes aware. So effectively, the end game for me is to prevent any occupant issues before they even would have otherwise known about them. So we know about the faults before they do, basically, and we resolve them before they would have had any awareness that there was a problem. That is the premise by which we've structured this approach. What have been the business benefits? You get reduced numbers of calls from the test areas. Right. When we standardise set points across floors, we see a cost saving, which is driven from energy reduction. And also what it enables us to do is to work with our maintenance provider to say, look, why are we just doing the same thing at a set frequency? Let's respond where we need to respond and better utilisation of resource. So, it's like taking your car to the garage every 6 months. We're now saying, well, we might not take it every 6 months. We might take it every 4. We might take it every 8. We might take it every 12. So it gives us that insight to be able to make that decision based on evidence and data rather than hunch.
Yeah, and it's a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure it is. And the further we deploy this into mechanical assets, I'm anticipating we'll see the same results. So we're just embarking on that trial right now here in the Gosforth site to validate some findings that Honeywell have had on other sites where predictive maintenance on mechanical kits such as pumps and boilers has demonstrated similar outcomes, i.e. benefit, and insights well before the users become aware of a service problem. But this site here where I am today, Gosforth and Newcastle on Science, is being used as a validation site for that technology. So it's quite exciting as well. We're checking out a lot of new stuff, and it's a trial. It may succeed or it may fail.
Yeah, it's trial and error. I think, and it was two questions I wanted to follow up on that. One is, as advice to other people, other building owners, other people in facilities who are looking to trial new technology, what would be your sort of, 3 real points of key points to them?
First one, I would say, test it first on a small scale with a small number of users. So, as we know, trials have 2 possible outcomes, and I was very cognizant of that at the outset. So, okay, let's go small scale, like a pilot trial for this, and just validate that it works for us. Secondly, I would say, work with any maintenance providers that you've got. They need to be on board, because if you're with one provider who does the technology and the maintenance, that's great, but we aren't. So we need quite a high degree of collaboration between business partners here. So that buy-in has got to exist from the outset, and people need to understand what the agenda is. And the third and final point is to understand, well, what is it you're trying to achieve out of it? So we had a very much an initial insight to get data to prevent faults before occupants knew they were happening. And that was a very clear purpose. But at the same token, what we've learned as the technology's evolved is you can use the data also to predict failure of an asset. Therefore, there are other benefits. So maybe some organisations think, I want this to inform my capital asset replacement programme. It will do the job. But be clear as to what you're trying to get out of the trial and the project before you embark on it. Don't just do it and, we're doing a smart building trial and use lots of fluffy words. Have a very clear objective as to what the end game looks like. And you probably get some surprises on the way that we did. So, things come out of it, such as asset replacement, where you go, that's very insightful. We were just going to replace kit on a cycle basis of end of life, but now we'll use the technology going forward to say, do we actually need to replace that based on the condition maintenance data that we've got? If it's running fine, and it's not critical to the business, let it roll. Don't spend 200,000 to 300,000 euros on replacing it unnecessarily. Yeah, so it'd be very insightful from that point of view, from an investment point of view, from property management.
And also a direct impact on the bottom line of the business. You can save more money then.
Indeed, and I've spoken to other people within the industry in different sectors, namely one in retail sector who are embarking on the use of this to inform their capital programme, to understand the condition of their kit with a view to, do I need to replace that kit now or in 5 years' time? Which is absolute business sense. So their purpose at the outset is different from what mine was, but we've had the benefit of learning through the exercise to reach the point we are today in understanding there are not just one benefit. There's not just one benefit. There are other tertiary or equally important benefits, such as capital asset replacement, that come out of it.
Great. So, given that you've had a fair bit of success with this, what are your plans next? Are you looking at other types of project, or other bring in other smart technology into the building?
So yeah, we are just in the final phases of a project to fit a smart ceiling into a reasonably large area for 324 people here. So the reason for that again is lighting is in the workspace we've got comfort, physical comfort, we've got lighting, we've got heating and ventilation. So looking at lighting, as we've embarked on our LED upgrade program, we said, well, what technologies exist to, if you like, leapfrog current LED to something which would be next generation. So through the relationship we developed with Honeywell, and on looking, with a very innovative appetite, this notion of a smart ceiling was discussed, and we said, well, okay, we're happy to give it a go. Let's see what we can do here. What do I want to get out of a smart ceiling? I want to get occupancy data. I want to get reliability. I want to have an angle on maintenance. And equally, and most, quite an exciting component is the occupant has local control over their lighting conditions above their desk. So depending on the task, we can vary the lighting within certain parameters. So we're installing that right now. And that will, again, be a reasonably large installation as a trial, and we have a parallel piece of work to evaluate the user reaction to that and other things that we're doing in that space.
Okay, that's interesting. To also look at then retrieving the feedback from your employees using the building and seeing how they interact with it.
Absolutely. So my inquiry is kind of very much along the lines of saying, we're going to move, let's say, 300 people from location A to location B. The lights have actually just gone out here because it's on PIR sensing, and it
what
doesn't
a great
detect
example.
Is it just cutting for a moment? Is it worth putting the lights back on for your video?
It's fine.
Or is that-
It's changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So where were we? We were kind of talking about the lighting project and users there getting feedback. So we're going to move these 300 people from location A to location B, and really the inquiry is in, is the improved location B, resulting in improvements to your productivity? So we've got quite a diverse group of people in that 300, so it's going to be quite interesting as to how we measure productivity. There are some metrics we use internally, but there's going to be some there's going to be some very subjective measures and some objective measures as well. As a piece of work, I think it's really exciting to kind of say, well, it's not just about having a new workspace. What we're asking here is saying, is that workspace leading to a positive impact on the people it's provided for, but not doing it when we have the honeymoon factor kicking in there? Everybody moves to a new house and loves it, then you live in it for 3 to 6 months, oh God, I would love to change this and I would love to change that. So we'll do the follow-up in about 6 months' time.
Yeah, very interesting. And I know that separately from this discussion before, we've talked between us about, the impact of different, how society's basically working different now, right? How, we're much more mobile as a workforce. People are working not just the office, they're working at home, they're working on the train, they're working, in lots of different areas. How's that impacting on your job, and how are you thinking about this technology? Is it going to sort of help you to be more reactive to these different kind of styles of working in the future?
So I think for me, it's about trying to get as much insight as possible into the user's expectations and requirements, and accepting that there'll be quite a large variation across the population. So we're deploying a couple of technology solutions in that space, the smart ceiling. We're looking at a mobile phone-based app, as it happens, the Honeywell Vector app, to give people the ability to provide feedback, rate their space, for want of a better word. So I'm in a meeting room now, the meeting room's tidy, it's clean, I'm pretty happy with it. But what I want is user feedback from the occupants to say, is that space working for you? I don't want to do it on a manual-based survey in 3 months' time. I want a real-time feel. So the Vector app will give us that, and we're going to trial that amongst those 300 people to get some rate my space data from them, be that in a meeting room, be that in the general office, and then we can drill down into that rate my space kind of application and say, well, okay, you give it a 1 star. We're working on the 5-star grid here, just the swipe along to give it 5 or just a 1 or whatever. If it's something like 1 or 2, we're going to ask some further questions to say what is it you weren't happy with. Lighting, comfort, temperature, cleanliness, disturbance factor, for example, just to get those user insights in real time rather than a retrospective at a point in time survey, which is by definition the data is out of date by the time you've gathered it. I'm just trying to get as quickly as possible in real time.
Well, it just reminds me to say thanks very much, Brian. I appreciate you taking the time.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, James.